So I'm just going to take us through a quick kind of overview of OpenTBL. I'm going to show a couple different peer evaluations. I'll show you the instructor side. I'll highlight some of the things that we've changed. Kajal already kind of commented on some of them, but I'll just kind of go through as we're kind of seeing it within the application. So the first thing that I want to mention is that, again, as Kajal said, this OpenTBL is part of the, we've been referring to it as the ThinkSpace family. So your ThinkSpace account is already active and valid here. You just need to go ahead and sign in with any existing ThinkSpace credentials. If you forgot your password, you can still do that through the OpenTBL site, and everything there is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with this. We'll be looking at it from the instructor view first, and then I'll take a look at the student side once we get in. When you first sign in, similar to ThinkSpace, you're presented with a list of your spaces. Again, these are kind of analogous to a course. And so I've set up a demo space for this particular showing here. And the first thing that I want to do is to jump right into a Michelson method evaluation. So I'll kind of show you what it looks like from the instructor side. I'll show you how we look at building them, and I'll show you kind of all the different options that we have. So the first thing that I'll briefly show is just the building side. And so in order to create it, we're calling these exercises in the TBL context. So we're going to go ahead and make a new exercise, which opens up what we call the builder. OpenTBL also supports readiness assurance tests. It supports IRATs and TRATs for those of you that are familiar. They work both for asynchronous online usage as well as face-to-face. But for the purposes of this, I'll kind of focus on the peer evaluation side for now. So when we come into the builder, we're prompted to give it a simple name, which we'll just fill it out, and some instructions for the actual peer evaluation itself. Pretty straightforward stuff here. The next step here will be the kind of the bread and butter of our actual evaluation. And again, this is intended just to have really reduced the concept of making an evaluation into simple parts comparatively to ThinkSpace, where it's quite a bit more complicated to get a peer eval up and running. And so the first thing that you'll be asked for is whether or not you want to use one of our existing templates. So we have Michelson method already baked into the system. You can start your own. You can save your own templates or any mix thereof. So to show you kind of how quick it is to get a Michelson method up and running, if you are using that, we'll simply go ahead and select Michelson method, hit next, set our release date and our due date, and we're effectively done. That's how fast it is to make a new Michelson method evaluation. So I can finish that, and one of the things that Kajal had kind of commented on was the whole activation process for in the ThinkSpace system was confusing and redundant. You had to activate it in two places. All you have to do now is just turn it from draft mode to published, and that is it. Just one button press, and all of your teams within the system will have access to this pending upon your release date and due date. So with that button press, case is live. This case is available to all of our students. We can still change the logistics, meaning the release date and due date, if we need to after the fact. So there are no restrictions on that anymore. So that's another improvement that we made in the system. But that's how quick it is to actually make a Michelson method. But I'll go back and kind of show you the categories and show you a little bit more in depth what we can do within the builder to customize it for your individual courses. So I'll go back into the builder, and we're going to make a new peer evaluation here. And we are going to, again, give it some title and instructions. And we'll go to the content step. And I'm going to show you what categories look like, because this is kind of the build your own evaluation style that some of you might have used in the ThinkSpace version. So first I'll start by selecting the categories template. Again, we could start with a blank canvas if we want. And additionally, the system lets you save your template. So if you're doing a midterm eval and then an end of semester evaluation, you can save that. And we still have a lot of that cloning functionality that you might have been used to in ThinkSpace. So we're trying to make that semester to semester or reusing the content as easy as possible, just to make it so we're kind of, we're putting the work up front to make the back end easier is kind of the mantra that we're doing here in this system. So I'll go ahead and take a look at the categories. And this is where we kind of get into the building side of things, and we can flesh these out any way that we want. So we can add as many slider scales as we want to this particular evaluation, and each of these themselves have a customizable range of options. We can change our label, of course. This is the prompt of the actual question. So how well did this group member listen, or how were they, frequently on time, whatever your label may be. This is where we'll type it in. And then you can customize the scale ranges. So by default, we have 1 to 10, but we know some people do 1 to 5 and all sorts of different things. So that's completely flexible there as well. Then from here, you can also set your kind of descriptive labels. So underneath the 1, it will say low. Underneath the 10, it will say high. So these are just kind of our text labels on the scale range as well.
That when you set your scale, make sure to set it from 0 onwards. Otherwise, 1 will be a default point that every student gets.
Yep, and we do have that fixed, Kajal. So the Michelson method and things do start at 0. For this particular one, we have it at 1. But what Kajal said is accurate. 0 is really where we want to start. So that was just a kind of an error in the original draft, but that has since been resolved. From here, we can do all the standard operations. We can duplicate our questions. We can delete them. We can shift the order around. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Then that moves us into the qualitative section. And here, again, we can ask as many questions as we want. And these will be divided into either positive feedback or constructive feedback. And I'll kind of show you, for those of you that haven't seen how the peer evaluation works in ThinkSpace, I'll show you how all of this kind of gets back to the student automatically. It's all anonymized, and we'll show you what that process looks like here in a second. But other than that, that's pretty much the building process for both categories and Michelson method. You can come in, you can customize your scales, add as many scales as you want. You can change your qualitative section to ask 0 questions all the way up through as many as you want. And then lastly, we have the option to save it as a template if we plan on reusing this, again, midterm to final or from semester to semester. You'll be able to save those templates as you move through the system.
Can you edit the template?
You can, yes. Yep. We work on a concept where you'll load the template, modify it, and then kind of do a save as. So you'll basically make a new template. We will be fleshing out the template piece to make that. One of the things we want to do is allow for instructors to share their templates, as well as just manage them a little more granularly, meaning delete them and things like that. So it's pretty simplistic right now. Basically, you can load a template, change it, and then save it as a new template, but we'll be kind of working on the capabilities surrounding that in the months to come.
Great.
Otherwise, we just have our release date, due date stuff again. And then the last step, again, is just the confirmation, where we just get an overview of all of the different scales we've added and so on. From there, again, for categories, for any evaluation in the system, the only activation button you'll ever press is just this Make It Live Now. And again, as soon as you do that, pending your release date, it is available to the students. And then from here, I'm going to show you, I'll take you into kind of what the instructor kind of management side looks like. And we've set up some example ones here. So I'll start by taking a look at a Michelson method. And when we are in as an instructor, we have this option. This is only available to the instructors. The students do not have it, which is this progress report button up here at the top. And students don't see scores either. That's also an instructor option we'll take a look at here in a second. But first, I want to dive into the progress report.
James, can I interrupt for just a second?
Yes.
So let's say I'm an instructor. This is coming back to the release thing. Mm-hmm. So let's say I say it go live, but I have forgotten when I've set the release date. Is it going to prompt me as to it's not live yet because it hasn't been released yet? Or how do I, if I'm a busy person, how am I going to know?
What we've been recommending people to do kind of as they move forward is just to activate it right away. Then you're fine. So we don't have any notifications that say, hey, the release date's coming up. That said, that's a great requirement to look at kind of adding as we move forward. Yeah, and Holly, as the instructor side as well, you can see, I guess it's just the due date right now. In the version that we'll be releasing probably by the end of today, it does show the when things get released and everything on this overview screen as well. So pretty much as long as you make it live, you'll have access to all that information. And when I show the student side, it will kind of show you what the instructor side is going to look like. But we're just kind of a build behind on the production server right now.
Okay, thanks.
So release date, you also have to activate. It's both.
Yeah.
The release date alone doesn't activate it.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And the major change from ThinkSpace that we've done is the reason in ThinkSpace that you had to activate it was due to technical reasons, which we've resolved that issue. So we are now free to do a lot of those things like what you're kind of hitting on now, which is maybe they auto-activate on the release date, and things like that. So we have a lot more flexibility on how we handle that when they get activated. Activating is no longer this critical piece to the system. It's more of they just get auto put into draft mode and published, and we have a lot of freedom to tinker with that now as we move forward.
Okay. Dr. Karbova had a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, I have two. So when I set the release date and activated it, it will be released on the date that was set, correct?
Correct, yes.
And then second question, I missed when you were going through your demo, is there a space to put the introduction to explain students what to do, like the process and everything? Was there a space there?
Yep. Yes. You will, when you create your exercises, your evaluations, you will provide both a title for it as well as an instruction block. So the instruction block is where we would recommend to do those types of direction and things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So kind of moving in here, this is, so again, this is that progress report button. And so for those of you who use the old system, we used to call this the evaluation dashboard. And this is one of the major changes in the system that I think is really, really positive. At a glance, in this particular evaluation, we have 2 teams of 4. And in this screen is where we can see pretty much exactly what's going on with all of the students. So in this team here, we can see that all of the students have completed them. In this team here, we can see that 2 have completed, 1 is still working on it, and 1 hasn't even started yet. So we can just at a glance see pretty much your entire class. So contrary to the old system where we had to kind of drill down into the teams and click through a bunch of stuff, this is all presented for you on one screen where you can see pretty much all of the status of everybody that's going on. Additionally, we have just some high-level analytics here just showing you how many students have completed, how many teams have completed, and things like that. But we can also drill down into a team level. So if I want to go ahead and take a look at this team, I can click on it, and here is that kind of that zoomed in view where we can see, in this case, we can look at Lauren's reviews and see every person who she reviewed and what their what the reviews were. We still allow you to scrub the qualitative piece, but not the quantitative piece. Again, the use case there is, oftentimes we've seen things like they want to scrub them for anonymization purposes, or perhaps they were using vulgar language or something like that. That's why we let you scrub the qualitative piece, but not the quantitative piece. But in this screen, we can drill down and look at each individual student and kind of see exactly what their reviews are if we want to get to that level. But more importantly, we have some added options here on the student level. So we can, if we scroll down to Sam here, he was the student who hadn't even started his. And let's say it's past due, we're looking to send that out. One of the new options that we have is you can simply ignore that. This is your flag to say that these results will not be calculated as part of the other team members' results. So in ThinkSpace, that was kind of an implied thing. And it wasn't very straightforward. Now we have an explicit option where you will say, I want to ignore the students, their reviews in calculating the other students' scores and things that they get. We can also send a reminder. So if we wanted to send Sam a reminder to say, hey, you need to finish this, or we want to send it out, we have that available as well. Additionally, we do allow you to unlock anybody who has submitted. So we've had a lot of tickets come in that say, so-and-so student needs to go back in and do it. Can you go ahead and unlock it? That's now something that you can do from your end. So as the instructor, you have pretty much control over everything that you need to have control over for this peer evaluation process. I can send mics back to in progress. I can mark it as complete. I can ignore it and change it pretty much anywhere in between there. So you have total flexibility on kind of what you're doing on that front.
So supposing the due date is done, and the student hasn't yet gone in, and you send him a reminder, do you also have to reset the due date, or can you still go in and do it?
The due date will, it's still depending on the due date. The due date still locks the students out, so you would have to extend the due date. That's another thing that we have basically resolved the technical issues with. And so kind of one of the things we had talked about was if we reopen it for a student, we might bring up a screen that says, do you want to extend the due date for Mike to give him some more time? So in OpenTBL, this isn't available to the instructors yet, but we do have the option to give individual students extensions on their timeline rather than the whole class, and it's a lot more granular in what we can do. So again, a lot of that stuff is still kind of quality of life that we're trying to figure out how to best implement it. But those options are available to us now versus they were not kind of in the old peer eval system. So other than that, the intent here is pretty much the same, where our end goal is we're going to go ahead and approve the teams and ultimately send them. One of the new features that we've kind of added here is a little bit of a stopgap. So in this particular team on the left, we still have an in progress and a not started, but I'm still able to approve the whole team. And when I do that, we get notified that, hey, there are 2 students that either haven't submitted it or haven't started it or something like that. So by approving the whole team, are you sure you want to ignore these 2 students? If we like that, we can just say ignore, and then there we go. It swaps them over to ignored. The other 2 are completed, and our results are ready to send at this point. Kind of one of the other things that is nice is that we do have downloadable reports for pretty much everything in the system now. So just to kind of give you an example of what a categories might look like, so probably be kind of hard to see on the screen there. But we give you all of the students, all of their emails. We give you each of the questions that were asked as well as their average scores. So this will basically be what the student will see kind of in the system, which I'll show you in a little bit. But that's one of the nice things from the system is that, where Kajal had on the screen, I downloaded the report and it was all zeros. That is no longer the case now. We have reports for categories. We have reports for Michelson method, and pretty much everything in the system has a related report to it. One of the things that this does not include as of now is the qualitative pieces, but that will be coming shortly in the future as well.
That's good. I need that. That's how I write my letters of rec now. That's part of what goes into letters of rec. It's what the students actually say about each other.
It really is. It makes them so much more, the letters are so much more personalized now, when they get their team members. It's very impactful.
Yep, and we totally hear you on that, and we felt the pain of not having that in the old system. So our approach for this is basically give you everything in some format or another. But the bottom line is, we have the reporting in. We can actually generate those now, and adding the qualitative piece will be pretty straightforward. And that's something that's very close on our roadmap. We'll probably have that in less than a week or something.
Is that going to be downloaded into like an Excel file so you can search for a team or a name?
Yeah, exactly. So the spreadsheet that I'm showing here, this is an actual downloaded report that I generated earlier from the system. So it is in a spreadsheet. We have some header columns where it shows the label of the questions that were asked. And again, this is just the quantitative piece for now. But we'll either add a second sheet to the spreadsheet or additional columns for the qualitative data. We're not sure what format we like best, but yes, it's spreadsheet download with everything, all the data that we have for the students available for you for filtering, searching, and doing kind of whatever you need to do.
And is the default organization by team rather than by last name? I mean, I know I can sort, but what's the default format?
The default format right now is alphabetical by last name. So probably not. Again, that's one of those things that as soon as you said group by team, it might make sense. So yeah, those are the types of things that we'll be tweaking over time, and we have a lot of flexibility in doing now. But as of now, it's default by last name alphabetical.
But team number is one of the columns.
It will be, yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right.
And so kind of along with this, I'll briefly log into my student account here that filled out one of these and show you what it looks like from the student side. So here I'm logged in as a student, and I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at, we'll look at this categories, the demo that we've set up, and this is what the student sees. So they can kind of see when things were due, when they've completed it. At this point, we mark that it's read-only, so they can't edit it. They can always go back to take a look at their evaluations that they have filled out for all their team members. These are not editable, so this is since I've submitted it and these have been sent, it's in a read-only fashion, but you can always go back and take a look. But really what I wanted to show here is the results button. And so when you as the instructor go through, you approve all your teams, you send the results, the students get an email that looks, I think I have it something like this. So the students will get an email that basically says, hey, your results are available. There's a direct link to the page that I'm about to show you. And once they click this link, it will take them to the results page where they get to see, in this case, it was categories. So we're seeing all of the different categories in my overall points, as well as my anonymized, this was our positive section and constructive section. And every time I demo this, people always say like they like the red and green colorings and things that we used to have in the ThinkSpace system, and they will be coming back, but we're kind of designing it from an accessibility first standpoint. And so the colors will be coming back, but we need to get everything else in first is the bottom line there. But again, this is what the student sees, so you don't have to do any paper shuffling or anything like that, just like the old system. And it gives them the overall kind of category results as well as the qualitative. And again, as the instructor, all of this data will be available to you in that spreadsheet, once we get the qualitative piece added in. So you'll have access to that through the spreadsheet download as the instructor, but the students will get it right here within the system, emailed directly to them with that link.
And that number is an average?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So right now what's reported is within each category, so I don't get an overall score at this point.
Correct, yes. Correct? That is correct, yep. We've ran into a plethora of different finalized scoring methods, so we decided to give you all of the data in spreadsheet form to let you determine how you wanted to do it on your end.
So I still have a question, and again, we're talking about 140 students, so we're wanting to automate things. So this, and I can't even remember, as I was asking Andrew, if we had to put it in by hand before, is there, I mean, so it's going to be Canvas eventually, but is there an interface between ThinkSpace and Blackboard or in Canvas? So, I mean, because what I'm thinking of is we have to go, so let's say we ask 10 questions. We're going to have to take the average of each person and then put that average into Blackboard. It's just a lot of handwork.
Yeah, I mean, the spreadsheet itself, we've generated it in a Canvas kind of friendly grade format, so you should be able to upload it. That said, we do actually have LTI now, which allows two things. One, it means that your students don't actually have to have an invitation to the system anymore, and you can put your link directly in Canvas or Blackboard. And then two, it allows us to do grade pushbacks and things like that in certain circumstances. So we don't have the grade implementation fully fleshed out yet. There are a lot of kind of caveats on our end of how we need to handle that. But our end goal is for our LTI implementation is to allow for grade pushback to happen to reduce kind of that administration on your end. So we're expecting to have something on the grade front maybe in the next month or something like that. So it is coming, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, and part of that to make it so automated is when we do categories like I do, is to take the average of all of the questions, and that's what gets pushed into Blackboard or Canvas. Because they can see the details of their questions, and we can download that, so I can keep it if I want to, but really what I use long-term is their quantitative average and then the qualitative comments.
Yep.
So what really needs to go into Blackboard is the quantitative average.
Yep, and your use case is pretty much exactly where we're starting, in the sense of, one of the catches to the whole LTI process is we can essentially submit one grade back. So we couldn't even send back one score per category. We have to generalize it down to a single number.
Which is fine.
So yeah, and so your use case will be exactly kind of what our first approach is. It's the people that are doing kind of, they only want, for example, one of the categories to be sent back. Those are the things that might be options later on, or something like that. But we're taking kind of the standard use case, which I would kind of argue that yours is just average everything, send back that single number. So that is what we're looking at.
Great.
But yeah, so not there yet. We do have the student, the logging in portion where they don't need to have the explicit account. That is already operational, and we'll be kind of releasing that probably Monday or Tuesday next week. But the grade stuff, again, we'll be taking a little time to figure out how to best implement that and make sure everything is smooth.
Thank you.
But the whole LTI concept is one of the big improvements over the system in ThinkSpace. We never had that in ThinkSpace. Sorry, say that again.
What's LTI?
LTI is it stands for Learning Tool Interoperability, which is a technical way. Basically, it's how we communicate with Canvas or Blackboard.
Okay.
Without this concept of LTI, we could never do that before. And now that we have it implemented, it lets us do a lot more direct interaction with your, Canvas or Blackboard, I guess, for in the grace period type of thing. But we have been doing all of our testing on Canvas, so we're hoping things should work in Blackboard if you're using that still. They should. But Canvas is the one that we're explicitly testing on. So
okay, we'll cope this year.
Okay, so kind of just showing, or kind of going along with what Kajal said, I'm back in the instructor side, and I just want to show some of the team side. Let's go up here. And so one of the kind of differences where we've basically rebuilt the team builder from the ground up, and we've tried to make it quite a bit more simplified in how you do that. So we have two different interfaces to actually kind of create your team. So first off is the roster view. So we can go through and select students. We can add to an existing team or create a new team with whoever we've selected. Your entire roster is loaded here. So even if they're not on the first page, you can click through, select them, and you can do some searching for your students and things like that. So this is the common way we've seen the teams be created. Just to kind of preface this, we have talked internally a lot about uploading a CSV of teams and things like that. So that'll probably be a feature you see at some point. Again, not in now, but that's one of the things on the roadmap. But the alternative view that we can look at is on a per team basis. So we can drill down into the team and add students this way as well and manage the team name and so on. But one of the reasons that we rebuilt it was because we ran into a lot of situations where we would get an email from an instructor saying so-and-so added the class late or dropped the class. Perhaps it was in the middle of the evaluation period, which kind of messes with things a little bit. But we've tried to handle all of that. So if you have a drop, even if it's in the middle of an evaluation that's already out there, you can go ahead and manage your teams at any point, and the system tries to handle that as appropriate. So there's a lot more flexibility on the team concept. It's not locked down like it was, and you have a lot more freedom to come in here and change your teams and things like that. So it does go through what we call the reconciliation process, which means if you drop somebody from a team in the middle of an evaluation, we will go back then and make sure that all of the team members' data is still good, even with that drop and everything like that. So the bottom line is, from the instructor perspective, this is kind of a, do whatever you want type of thing now, and it's not nearly as restrictive. You don't have to have your teams perfect the first time around and things like that. We've tried to address for a lot of those kind of just practical things that happen in the classroom.
So you mean to say students won't have to redo their evaluation?
It depends on the.
They don't have to redo their evaluations. The system will readjust or reassign their. So for example, if I move Toby from Thundercats to Children of the Forest.
Yeah. So if you move Toby to Thundercats or Children of the Forest, effectively what will happen is the system will go in and say, for the other 3 team members on Thundercats, it's going to basically wipe their reviews for Toby. And then on the Children of the Forest side, it's going to go add a blank review for Toby on all of their ends. So in certain circumstances, they will have to kind of redo things if students get swapped and things like that. But we've tried to take the least, I want to use the term destructive, but we've tried to reset the least amount of data as possible. But in things like balance points, it introduces an interesting concept, because if a team member gets added to your team and after you've done your balance points or your Michelson method, there's kind of a pedagogical argument to say maybe you should reset all of the quantitative scores to let the students rebalance and things like that. So, we've basically taken a stab at it, and we let the instructor know what's going on. So when you do changes, so for example, let's go ahead and remove Toby, and we will, we get this box here that says that you have unsaved changes to your teams that will affect your current assignments. Do you want to apply them now? And then when we hit save, we get an idea of what will be changed or touched throughout this process. So, it's not as simple to say that, nothing gets touched throughout this process. We do have to do resets in certain circumstances, but we do let you know ahead of time before you make those changes. So the bottom line is, generally speaking, adds and drops are fine, and everything should be pretty good to go.
And all that complexity is just if they add drop in the middle of an assessment, right? Otherwise,
exactly. Yep.
Straightforward.
If you have, you summarized it perfectly. The problem has always been in the middle of the evaluations. If it's outside of an evaluation, that's totally fine. System just does it, and everything is happy. And one of the things I want to note too is, if you have a midterm evaluation and a final evaluation and your teams change, the midterm is still a reflection of the teams at that point in time. Yeah. So the data is archived. The data is not lost. It will just affect kind of the future or current or upcoming exercises, if you will. Okay, so forming teams, basically, the new thing here is the roster view. We'd like to do a CSV upload at some point, but that's not implemented at this point. But the roster view in and of itself is quite a bit more simple than what you've seen in ThinkSpace, and it makes things a lot easier. And then just to kind of wrap up my portion too, just to kind of show you where we're going is, we've been through the summer semester. We had some testers on there. This is our first kind of full run. So we're trying to get as many people on the system as we can. So if you are doing evaluations, this is where kind of the action is happening on the development front. So the ThinkSpace side is kind of just whatever it is today is what it's going to be tomorrow, whereas this is where we'll be adding the new features. This is where the grade pushbacks and things like that through that LTI process is going to happen. So this is, if you're just doing peer evals, this is where you'll want to be. And again, your ThinkSpace account will work here. It's part of the ThinkSpace family, and we still, we provide full support for this, just like we do ThinkSpace and everything else. So there was one more thing I wanted to touch on quick too, is as we're seeing here, this is what it would look like, I guess. Let's look at iPhone. We have went out of our way to make the site, we don't have a native application for phones and tablets and things, but everything is responsive and accessible via phones for both, for the student side as well as the instructor side. So this is primarily more useful for the readiness assurance side, for the face-to-face courses and things like that. But even for the peer evals, you're able to actually take those on your phone and things like that. So we've expanded the device capabilities as well quite a bit from, ThinkSpace is generally speaking just desktops and laptops. But now we are intending to support tablets and mobile devices and things like that as well. So that's another nice little feature add that some of the students have already taken advantage of.